Which Ethiopian leader's legacy still inspires global movements today? Watch as we count down the top 5 strongest figures in Ethiopia's history. Who do you think is number 1? Number 5. Ahmed ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, Ahmed Gragn. Ahmed ibn Ibrahim al-Ghazi, famously known as Ahmed Gragn, meaning Ahmed the Left-Handed, was born around 1507 in the Sultanate of Adal, located in what is now eastern Ethiopia and Somalia. His early life remains somewhat obscure, but he emerged as a brilliant military strategist and charismatic leader within the Adal Sultanate. Ahmed rose to prominence during a period of intense rivalry between the Christian Ethiopian Empire, Solomonic dynasty, and the Muslim sultanates of the Horn of Africa. In the late 1520s, Ahmed Gragn became the Imam of Adal. Assuming control over the Sultanate, he inherited a fragmented and weakened state, but united various Somali, Afar, and Arab clans under his leadership. His ambition was fueled by both religious zeal and the desire to challenge the dominance of the Christian Ethiopian Empire, which was expanding its territory into traditionally Muslim areas. Ahmed sought to revive and expand Islam in the region and envisioned an Islamic empire in the Horn of Africa. By 1529, Ahmed Gragn began his military campaigns against the Ethiopian Empire under Emperor Lebna Dengel. Military campaigns and conquests from 1529 to 1543. The Battle of Shimbra-Kure, 1529. Ahmed's forces, equipped with firearms obtained from the Ottoman Empire, faced Emperor Lebna Dengel's larger but less technologically advanced army. Despite being outnumbered, Ahmed's troops emerged victorious, marking the beginning of a series of conquests. The occupation of Ethiopian territories. Ahmed launched aggressive campaigns deep into Ethiopian territory. His military campaigns were notable for their speed, strategy, and the use of firearms, which were uncommon in the region at the time. Between 1529 and 1543, Ahmed Gragn's forces conquered vast areas of Ethiopia, including major cities like Gondar and Aksum. He desecrated many Christian churches, including the Church of St. Mary of Zion in Aksum, and replaced them with mosques. The role of firearms. One of the key factors in Ahmed's success was his alliance with the Ottoman Empire. He secured a steady supply of firearms, artillery, and trained military personnel from the Ottomans, giving his forces a significant advantage over the Ethiopian army, which relied primarily on traditional weapons. The sack of Christian monasteries and churches. Ahmed's campaigns included the destruction of many important Christian sites, which he viewed as symbols of Ethiopian imperial authority. This was part of his strategy to weaken the Ethiopian Empire culturally and spiritually. The Ethiopian counterattack and Portuguese intervention from 1541 to 1543. The Ethiopian Empire, under Emperor Galawdewos, son of Lebna Dengel, struggled to resist Ahmed's forces until they secured military aid from Portugal. In 1541, a Portuguese force of 400 musketeers arrived under the command of Cristóvão da Gama, son of the famous navigator Vasco da Gama. The Portuguese allied with Ethiopian forces and used their advanced firearms and military expertise to counter Ahmed's troops. This marked a turning point in the war. The Battle of Wainadaga, 1543. The decisive battle took place at Wainadaga, near Lake Tana, in 1543. Ahmed Gragn was killed during the battle by Ethiopian and Portuguese forces. His death marked the collapse of the Adal Sultanate's dominance and the eventual retreat of its forces. Legacy of Ahmed Gragn is remembered as one of the most brilliant military leaders in African history. His campaigns demonstrated his ability to unite diverse groups, adopt advanced technologies, and challenge a much larger empire. Ahmed's campaigns left a lasting mark on the Horn of Africa. While his conquests were temporary, they intensified the religious divide between Christians and Muslims in the region, which has shaped Ethiopia's socio-political dynamics to this day. Ahmed Gragn's wars were among the first in Africa where firearms played a decisive role. His alliance with the Ottomans also highlights the global dimensions of the conflicts in the Horn of Africa during the 16th century. To some, Ahmed Gragn is a hero who fought for the spread of Islam and the sovereignty of Muslim communities in the Horn of Africa. To others, he is a controversial figure associated with the destruction of Christian sites and immense suffering during his campaigns. Number 4. Emperor Menelik II. Emperor Menelik II, 1844-1913, was one of Ethiopia's most renowned leaders, celebrated for his military achievements, modernization efforts, and diplomatic acumen. He is best known for his decisive victory at the Battle of Adwa in 1896, which secured Ethiopia's sovereignty and became a symbol of African resistance against colonialism. Here's a comprehensive overview of his life and legacy. Early life. Menelik II was born as Sale Mariam in 1844 in Ankober, Shewa, to King Haile Melekot and Woizero Ijigayahu. After his father's death, Sale Mariam was captured by Emperor Tewodros II and held captive at the royal court. Despite being a political prisoner, he gained exposure to statecraft and military strategy, which shaped his future leadership. In 1865, Menelik escaped captivity and returned to Shewa, where he claimed his father's throne as king of Shewa. Menelik II became Emperor of Ethiopia in 1889, following the death of Emperor Johannes IV. His ascent was marked by alliances and negotiations with regional leaders. Menelik's wife, Empress Taitu Betul, was a formidable figure in her own right. She played a significant role in Menelik's court, particularly during the Battle of Adwa. Battle of Adwa, 1896. Menelik's most notable achievement was defeating the Italian forces at Adwa. This victory came after Italy attempted to colonize Ethiopia, leveraging a mistranslation in the Treaty of Wuchale. Menelik united Ethiopia's diverse ethnic groups, amassing a formidable army of over 100,000 soldiers equipped with modern firearms obtained from European powers. The Ethiopian victory at Adwa humiliated Italy and secured Ethiopia's independence, making it a beacon of resistance for oppressed nations globally. Menelik expanded Ethiopia's borders, integrating regions like Arsi, Harar, and Sidamo into the empire. Menelik is often called the father of modern Ethiopia for his ambitious reforms. He built Ethiopia's first railway, connecting Addis Ababa to Djibouti, facilitating trade and communication. Menelik established Addis Ababa as Ethiopia's capital in the 1880s. The city quickly grew into a political and economic hub. He introduced modern medicine and established schools, including the first printing press in Ethiopia. Ethiopia became one of the first African nations to adopt telephone and telegraph systems under Menelik's rule. Treaty of Wuchale, 1889. Initially, Menelik signed this treaty with Italy, granting trade concessions. However, a mistranslation led to conflict, culminating in the Battle of Adwa. Relations with European powers. Menelik skillfully balanced relationships with Britain, France, and Russia to secure arms and maintain Ethiopia's sovereignty. His leadership inspired anti-colonial movements across Africa and the African diaspora. Menelik II's later years were marked by illness, but his legacy as a unifier and modernizer remained intact. He passed away in 1913, leaving a nation that had successfully resisted colonization and embarked on the path of modernization. Menelik is celebrated as one of Africa's greatest leaders. His legacy is immortalized in monuments, including a prominent equestrian statue in Addis Ababa. Number 3. Emperor Haile Selassie, born as Tafari Makonnen, was Ethiopia's last emperor and one of the most significant figures in African and global history. His reign spanned from 1930 to 1974, and his influence extended far beyond Ethiopia, making him a symbol of African unity and resistance against colonialism. Here is the full story of his life and legacy. Tafari Makonnen was born on July 23, 1892, in Ejer-Sagoro, near Harar. He was the son of Ras Makonnen, a trusted general and governor under Emperor Menelik II, and Woizero Yeshimebet Ali. Tafari was educated at home and in Harar, where he demonstrated a keen intellect and strong leadership qualities from an early age. He gained fluency in Amharic, French, and Ge'ez, and studied politics, history, and religion. Tafari's rise began when he was appointed governor of Sidamo in 1907 and later Harar in 1910, positions where he proved his administrative and diplomatic skills. In 1916, Tafari Makonnen became Ras Tafari and was appointed crown prince and regent after the deposition of Empress Zewditu's father. He effectively ruled Ethiopia during this period, introducing reforms such as modernizing the military, education, and administration. Following Empress Zewditu's death in 1930, Ras Tafari was crowned Emperor Haile Selassie I. His coronation was a grand affair attended by international dignitaries, symbolizing Ethiopia's importance on the global stage. He introduced Ethiopia's first written constitution, which centralized power in the monarchy, but also established a semblance of a parliament. Haile Selassie built schools and invited foreign educators to improve literacy and technical skills across Ethiopia. He expanded Ethiopia's road network, established postal and telecommunication services, and modernized Addis Ababa. Haile Selassie reorganized the Ethiopian military, incorporating modern weapons and training with assistance from foreign nations. In 1935, Italy invaded Ethiopia under Benito Mussolini. Despite valiant resistance, Ethiopia was occupied by Italy in 1936. Haile Selassie fled to England, living in exile in Bath, but continued to rally support for Ethiopia's liberation. Haile Selassie delivered a historic address condemning Italy's aggression. His speech highlighted the dangers of appeasement and called for collective security, solidifying his status as a global statesman. With the help of British and Ethiopian forces, Haile Selassie returned to Ethiopia and reclaimed the throne after defeating the Italian occupation. Haile Selassie played a pivotal role in the establishment of the Organization of African Unity, OAU, in 1963, with its headquarters in Addis Ababa. He became a symbol of African independence and unity. He fostered diplomatic ties with countries worldwide, representing Ethiopia at the United Nations and other international forums. Despite his reforms, Ethiopia faced significant economic disparities. With rural poverty persisting under a feudal system, Haile Selassie became a messianic figure for the Rastafarian movement, which emerged in Jamaica in the 1930s. He was regarded as the returned Messiah and the conquering Lion of Judah prophesied in the Bible. The Rastafarian movement emerged in Jamaica during the 1930s, inspired by the teachings of Marcus Garvey. Garvey had prophesied the rise of a black king in Africa who would lead the people of African descent to liberation. When Ras Tafari Makonnen was crowned Emperor Haile Selassie I in 1930, many Jamaicans identified him as the prophesied figure, the conquering Lion of Judah, a title he bore as a descendant of the biblical King Solomon and Queen of Sheba. Rastafarians revere Haile Selassie as the Messiah and see him as a symbol of Ethiopia. Under Haile Selassie's leadership, became the symbolic Promised Land, or Zion for Rastafarians. They believed it was the spiritual homeland for African heritage, liberation, and divine power. People of African descent. On April 21, 1966, Haile Selassie made a historic visit to Jamaica, where he was met with massive crowds of Rastafarian followers. The day is now celebrated as Groundation Day in Rastafarian tradition. During his visit, Haile Selassie engaged with Rastafarian leaders, strengthening their spiritual and cultural connection to Ethiopia. He reportedly advised them to seek spirituality within themselves rather than worshipping him directly. In the 1950s, Haile Selassie granted 500 acres of land in Shashamane, Ethiopia, to people of African descent who wished to return to their ancestral homeland. This gesture further solidified his symbolic role as a unifier of the African diaspora. Shashamane remains home to a Rastafarian community to this day. Although it patron of Ethiopian Orthodox Christianity, he supported the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, reinforcing its role in Ethiopian society and culture. One of Haile Selassie's most remarkable contributions to modern Ethiopia was the founding of Ethiopian Airlines in 1945. His vision was to establish Ethiopia as a symbol of progress and connectivity in Africa and the world. The airline would serve as a national carrier that symbolized Ethiopian sovereignty and pride, while fostering economic growth and integration. Recognizing the need for expertise in aviation, Haile Selassie negotiated a partnership with Transworld Airlines, TWA, an American company. TWA provided technical assistance, training, and management, ensuring the airline's successful launch. Ethiopian Airlines started with a small fleet of Douglas C-47 Skytrains, military aircraft adapted for civilian use after World War II. The airline's inaugural flight was on April 8, 1946, connecting Addis Ababa to Cairo, making it one of the first airlines in Africa. Haile Selassie personally supported the airline by allocating government resources and ensuring that Ethiopian Airlines operated as a self-sufficient and professional entity. He saw the airline as a vital tool for international diplomacy, often using it for official state visits. Under Haile Selassie's reign, Ethiopian Airlines grew to become a symbol of excellence, connecting Africa to the rest of the world. Today, the airline stands as a lasting legacy of his vision, regarded as one of the most successful and respected carriers in Africa. Widespread dissatisfaction with economic inequality, famine, and government corruption led to Haile Selassie's overthrow by a military junta, the Derg, in 1974. Haile Selassie died in 1975 under mysterious circumstances while in detention. Though officially reported as natural causes, many believe he was murdered by the Derg. Haile Selassie remains a revered figure in Ethiopia and globally. Statues, streets, and institutions are named after him, reflecting his enduring impact. Number 2. Emperor Tewodros II. Emperor Tewodros II, born Kasa Haile around 1818 in the Gondar region of Ethiopia, is one of the most iconic and controversial figures in Ethiopian history, known for his ambition to unite Ethiopia and modernize its institutions. His reign from 1855 to 1868 was marked by both visionary reforms and tragic endings. Kasa Haile was born into a noble but not particularly powerful family. After losing his parents at an early age, he grew up in a turbulent Ethiopia, fragmented into regions controlled by warlords and regional rulers. Determined to rise above these divisions, Kasa joined a group of bandits and gradually built a reputation as a fearless and charismatic leader. In the mid-19th century, Ethiopia was in chaos, divided among various principalities and under constant threat of foreign invasions. Kasa's military prowess and alliances allowed him to overthrow rivals, and in 1855, he crowned himself Emperor Tewodros II. His coronation marked the end of the era of princes, Zemene Mesafint, and the beginning of a new centralized government. Tewodros II was deeply passionate about unifying Ethiopia and bringing the country into the modern age. His vision for a strong and independent Ethiopia included: he sought to end the feudal system and regional autonomy, bringing all Ethiopian territories under his direct control. Tewodros built a professional army equipped with modern weapons, including cannons he commissioned to be built locally. His famous cannon, Sebastopol, symbolized his industrial ambitions. He constructed roads and bridges to connect different regions, facilitating trade and communication. A devout Christian, Tewodros sought to reform the Ethiopian Orthodox Church and encourage education. He also sent letters to European powers, including Queen Victoria, seeking alliances and expertise. Tewodros's dream of modernization required foreign assistance, but his interactions with European powers were strained. After failing to secure meaningful support, he grew frustrated and imprisoned British and European officials in his fortress at Magdala, hoping to force negotiations. This act led to the 1868 British expedition to Abyssinia, led by General Sir Robert Napier. The British forces, armed with advanced weaponry and thousands of soldiers, marched to Magdala. Despite Tewodros's resistance, the fortress fell. As British forces breached Magdala on April 13, 1868, Tewodros refused to be captured alive. In a final act of defiance, he took his own life using a pistol gifted to him by Queen Victoria. His death marked the end of his ambitious reign and left Ethiopia in mourning. Tewodros II is remembered as a tragic hero, a reformer who sought to unite and modernize Ethiopia against overwhelming odds. Tewodros's efforts to centralize Ethiopia inspired leaders like Menelik II and Haile Selassie. His refusal to submit to colonial powers made him a symbol of Ethiopian sovereignty. Stories of his life, from his rise to power to his defiant death, are celebrated in Ethiopian folklore, literature, and music. Tewodros personally oversaw the construction of a massive cannon at Gafat. It required hundreds of men to transport and symbolized his industrial ambitions. His wife, Empress Tiruwork Wube, was captured by the British and died shortly after his death. His young son, Alamayahu, was taken to England, where he died at the age of 18. Tewodros wrote several letters to European leaders, but his correspondence with Queen Victoria remains one of the most famous diplomatic exchanges in Ethiopian history. Number 1. Meles Zenawi. Meles Zenawi, born Legessa Zenawi Asres on May 8, 1955, in Adwa, Tigray Province, Ethiopia, was one of the most prominent and transformative leaders in modern Ethiopian history. From his humble beginnings to becoming the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, his life journey was marked by revolutionary ideals, political reform, and economic ambition. Meles was born to a middle-class family in the historical town of Adwa, a place renowned for Ethiopia's victory against Italian colonizers during the Battle of Adwa. He excelled academically and attended the prestigious General Wingate Secondary School in Addis Ababa. Initially enrolling at Addis Ababa University, formerly Haile Selassie III University, to study medicine, Meles abandoned his studies in 1975 to join the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF. The TPLF was a revolutionary movement opposed to the oppressive Derg regime, which ruled Ethiopia following the overthrow of Emperor Haile Selassie in 1974. During his time in the TPLF, Meles became a central figure in the fight against the Derg regime. His sharp intellect, organizational skills, and political acumen propelled him to leadership roles within the movement. He was instrumental in drafting the TPLF's ideological framework, which combined Marxist principles with a focus on self-determination for oppressed nationalities. In 1989, Meles became the chairman of the Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, EPRDF, a coalition of movements including the TPLF. Under his leadership, the EPRDF launched a series of coordinated offensives against the Derg, culminating in the fall of the regime in May 1991. After the overthrow of the Derg, Meles became the president of the Transitional Government of Ethiopia from 1991 to 1995. He played a critical role in drafting Ethiopia's 1995 constitution, which introduced a federal system based on ethnic regions. This system granted regions the right to self-determination and even secession. In 1995, Meles transitioned to the role of Prime Minister, a position he held until his death in 2012. Meles's tenure was marked by significant reforms aimed at modernizing Ethiopia and lifting millions out of poverty. Meles pursued ambitious infrastructure projects, including hydroelectric dams, roads, and railways, which became the backbone of Ethiopia's growing economy. Under his leadership, Ethiopia achieved double-digit economic growth for several years. He prioritized agriculture as a pillar of Ethiopia's economy, introducing policies to improve food security and empower smallholder farmers. Meles positioned Ethiopia as a key player in African politics, serving as the chairperson of the African Union and representing Africa in global climate change negotiations. His government expanded access to education and healthcare, significantly reducing illiteracy rates and improving child mortality statistics. Despite his achievements, Meles's leadership faced criticism. Critics accused his government of suppressing political opposition, limiting press freedom, and centralizing power within the EPRDF. The ethnic-based federal system he established remains controversial, with some arguing it exacerbated ethnic tensions. The 1998 to 2000 war with Eritrea, which resulted in tens of thousands of deaths, remains a blemish on his leadership. Meles was married to Azeb Mesfin, a fellow TPLF member, and they had 3 children. Azeb later became a prominent political figure in her own right. Meles was known for his disciplined lifestyle, intellectual rigor, and passion for books. Meles Zenawi passed away on August 20th, 2012, at the age of 57 in Brussels, Belgium, after a brief illness. His death marked the end of an era for Ethiopia. He was buried in Addis Ababa with a state funeral attended by numerous African and global leaders. Meles is remembered as a visionary leader who sought to modernize Ethiopia and redefine its place on the global stage. While his legacy is debated, his impact on Ethiopia's economic and political landscape is undeniable. These remarkable leaders have left an indelible mark on Ethiopian history. Their stories inspire us, challenge us, and remind us of the strength of leadership and vision. But here's the big question for you. Which one do you think deserves the #1 spot in Ethiopia's history of leadership? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another deep dive into the incredible tales of Ethiopia.